Welcome, everybody, to the Sunscreen Film Festival podcast. This is podcast number 30.
Yay,
30. 30. That's 30 is a good number. It's like when you turn 30 years old. I think that's the point where things start to really move on their way up, for the most part.
Yeah, it hasn't moved up yet for me.
I'm Tony Armour, Executive Director of the Sunscreen Film Festival. Tyler Martinulich, Programming Director for the Sunscreen Film Festival. And Brad Siberson, writer extraordinaire and film critic and just writer.
Drunk?
Well, he's a writer, so that's, that makes perfect sense. Real quick, before we get started here, I know we've got a lot of filmmakers that watch the podcast, and today is February 24th, Oscar Sunday. We will be announcing all of the films and the schedule for the films March 17th. So stay tuned, March 17th. On the podcast, we will announce all the films, and we'll put it out that day, and then later on, put it up on the website, and Tyler will personally contact everybody and let you know what films make the festival. So
we'll announce it that Sunday, and then you guys can check on the website on Monday, the 18th.
Yeah.
And we'll have everything listed out there. So look forward to that. That's in 3 weeks?
Yeah, something like that. It's coming up quick. Yeah. So, all right, good. Well, we're just going to get started chatting here today like we always do. If you have or haven't watched the podcast before, we just always talk about random whateverness in the film and entertainment world. And since this is Oscar Sunday, we figured maybe we'd do a little Oscar talk. Since, of course, as you can see at the bottom of the screen here, Sunscreen Film Festival is sponsored by the Motion Picture Academy for this year, specifically so we can start a Spanish language filmmaker program. So we're big fans of the Academy. Again, thank you to the Academy for giving us some sponsorship cash to start this program, and we're one of only 23 festivals in the country, so we feel really happy and honored that they have, recognized that we're pretty cool. So anyway, so the Oscars are today. Doesn't seem to be really that big of a deal because I think everybody's
the Oscars.
Well, and everybody already thinks they know who's going to win. It's fairly predictable for this year.
It was a very typical year. I mean, it was the who's who of Hollywood this year. You have your Spielberg, you have your Quentin Tarantino, you have your Ang Lee. It's people who've been nominated ad nauseum before, so you sort of know who's going to win. We have all the hype going behind it, like Daniel Day-Lewis. Like, how many Oscars can this guy actually win?
Right.
He's going to win a third one, I guarantee you, tonight for Best Actor for Lincoln. It's very predictable this year. There's really no dark horses that might come out of nowhere to take everything. With the exception of Beasts of the Southern Wild, which people are sort of unsure of. It was sort of a surprise nomination to begin with.
Well, it was cool that it got nominated, period.
It was really on no one's radar. Like, it was on mine, because I know the guys who made it, and I've always been following their careers, but I couldn't imagine anyone else really globbing onto that movie and realizing, hey, this is out there, let's support it. But then you also have Michael Haneke's Amour, and I can't stand Michael Haneke's films, so I'm just
Why don't you tell the audience some other Michael Haneke films?
He did a wonderful little film called Funny Games, and there's nothing funny about Funny Games. It is
wow, how bitchy Leonard Maltin.
It is a torturously long movie that is bordering on pseudo-torture porn. I mean, it is so misogynistic and graphic and hard to watch. And someone got the great idea to remake it and let Michael Haneke remake his own movie, but in English. And they remade it with Naomi Watts a couple years ago, and Liv Schreiber, I believe. No, not Liv Schreiber. Maybe it was Liv Schreiber who's in it. It is Liv Schreiber. And it is just as terrible. In fact, today I think it's one of the most least watched remakes of all time.
Most least watched remakes.
Yes, that was probably the word wrong syntax used. But I think they made it for something like crazy, like $14 million, and it made $7 million over a lifetime. It was It was made over 10 years ago. So,
Funny Games. Is that supposed to be like an ironic title, or just,
I don't know if he was doing it specifically for irony. It's just these people live out in the middle of nowhere, and these two people one day show up at their house and decide to torture the family and kill them.
So it's sort of a Sam Peckinpah, whatchamacallit?
Straw Dogs?
Straw Dogs.
No.
Except Straw Dogs is good.
Straw Dogs is great, but
Which they remade recently as well.
Trying to get inside the house,
Right?
They willingly let these people in because
Gotcha.
they're 2 young kids and they're very clean cut and
Sure.
they're not really sure what's going on, and all of a sudden it turns into this graphic
So it's like
mindfuck game.
It's like Island of Death.
I've never seen Island of Death. I would do Clockwork Orange. You know, when they break into the house and rape the family, and
Yeah.
it's like that, but for 90 minutes.
Sounds joyous.
Oh, it sounds like something that people would watch, though.
Yeah, but apparently they
That's
didn't.
really bad.
No one did. So very, very strange film. But that's Michael Haneke for you. He won the Palme d'Or 2 years ago for White Ribbon, which I fell asleep in at Cannes.
At Cannes.
It's saying something.
This is
maybe
funny
that was
games.
3 years ago. I can't remember. But
But regardless, so not a fan of Michael Haneke.
no.
But and you know, and
Though it's sort of irrelevant now because you're probably watching this after the Oscars. But
I'll get it out today. I think I can pump it out before the
great
Oscars.
that. Look up Michael Haneke on Twitter because it's a fake Michael Haneke, and he rocks out some really funny.
Really,
stuff.
that's hilarious. That's funny. So the Oscars. One of the things we were talking about earlier is that Argo's been winning all of these awards, and Screen Actors Guild Awards and Golden Globes and yada yada. Name all the whatever awards. Can't keep of all the ridiculous awards. There should be literally just 2 awards every year. You should just have the Oscars and the Grammys, and there shouldn't be anything else.
I don't even think you need the Grammys.
I probably don't even need the Grammys. The Grammys are
Really?
just
the
music industry blowing themselves anyways, basically.
Well, so the Oscars.
They are, but
How is that just like not an endless circle jerk? I mean,
it is. But for some
rather
reason,
watch-
the Oscars just have this sort of.
I'd rather watch Grass Ride than watch that.
If you're a filmmaker and just be like, how'd you like to win an Oscar? Every filmmaker plays.
It's been around for almost 100 years. So
Yeah.
It's got some prestige behind it.
So, but anyways, Ben Affleck is not nominated for Best Director when he's been nominated in every other.
Not just nominated, but won, I believe, every time he's been nominated
Right.
this year.
He won Best Actor sometime?
I don't know if he was nominated for Best Actor.
I was just curious. I have nothing against Ben Affleck, unlike most people.
I like Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck went through that one little period of.
After Geely.
Yeah, it was sort of Ben Affleck was great. Then Ben
Everybody
Affleck
hated
was
Affleck.
terrible, and then he was the same thing happened to Travolta back in the day. I think everybody forgets that.
The thing is, I don't remember people really hating him, though. They just got tired of him.
Yeah.
It's like with Ben Affleck, they're like, Ben Affleck's the worst. I'm fucking...
Well, it was the whole J-Lo thing too, and then
I don't know.
Travolta.
I guess the fact that I don't watch a lot of TV,
Yeah.
I just didn't see that much of him. It didn't bother me. It's just some guy.
People don't really remember this, but after Look Who's Talking, there was a period of Travolta's career was in the toilet. Nobody would hire him for anything, nothing. He was just the Black Death. Everyone stayed away from him. And then came along Pulp Fiction, and ever since then, top of the charts again, basically. So interesting. I think, and there was probably a period
actually, being a good actor probably helps.
Yeah, right, exactly. Same thing with Ben Affleck, too,
perfectly fine.
He's a good actor, he's a talented director, he's a good producer.
Well, I think if you look at his career, I think he's taken control of the projects he's on now,
Right.
whereas before, he was in Geely, which was a horrible mistake. He was in Daredevil, horrible mistake. He
I find
wasn't
Daredevil
really...
to be completely average. I don't think it's that bad. I never understood the hatred for that movie.
Are you a comic book fan at all?
Yes, but I hated Daredevil. I always considered him the bland. Literally, at one point, I bought every single Marvel comic being published, including Venom, but I didn't buy Daredevil.
I never bought Daredevil either. I just thought he was such a boring character.
Me too.
I don't know why they made that into a movie.
Me neither.
Because he's popular.
I guess.
And Frank Miller's Daredevil, boring.
Yeah.
Boring. He's just boring. The bland superhero, not the blind superhero.
Yeah, and he's an attorney. Nobody likes attorneys.
A blind attorney.
The blind attorney. The blind, boring attorney who swings around like Spider-Man.
But not.
But he's not Spider-Man because he doesn't stick to walls. He's not as cool as Spider-Man.
But he has the spidey senses
Right.
without being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's blind so he can see stuff or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And his magical power is a stick.
Right. Yes.
But
yes,
anyway, the
it's
point
a
is, though, I always thought that movie was just completely average. I never understood the hate for that movie. I've seen much worse movies than that.
I think the depiction of Daredevil was all right. It was the two villains, man. Oh my God,
Who were they? Bullseye and
Bullseye
Elektra?
was so bad.
They did a bad job with, and you know what? I actually do like what's his name that played Bullseye?
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell. I know a lot of people hate Colin Farrell. I was like, I don't mind Colin Farrell. I think he's all
I
right.
don't mind him either.
Yeah.
But he was terrible in that movie.
And I like what's his name that played Kingpin? Michael Clark Duncan.
But
Except Kingpin's white, but,
Whatever.
that's just annoying.
it was just so over the top because
like forced.
Kingpin.
Nick
Was,
Fury used to be white too, but
That's true. That's true.
I like how there's so many black characters in the Marvel Universe. There's like Luke Cage, there's the Panther, there's a million others. I'm not going to name them. Storm.
Right.
But it seems like the only black characters in Marvel comic movies are people who used to be white. You're not allowed to be black in a Marvel comic movie unless you used to be white. They're that racist.
So one of the key words that I'll put in for YouTube for this is that Marvel is racist.
Marvel racist.
Stan's gonna love that. I'll never get that comic book signed now.
Oh, Excelsior. Oh, my.
It's hilarious.
That's great.
We totally derailed our train of thought there.
Sorry, that's what I did.
I
think I'm still a little drunk.
well, Affleck's not. Our point was that Affleck's not all bad.
Yeah,
and
Daredevil wasn't, in my opinion, all that bad.
right.
No, well, my point was that since then he's been extremely choosy about
Right.
the roles he's taken, both as an actor and as a director.
Well, he can afford to be now, so that's
Yeah.
probably good.
But for a while there, I mean, I'm sure he made a lot of money. But
Wasn't he in Reindeer Games too? Another bad movie he was in.
Yes.
They tried
I've never seen it.
rebranding him as Jack Ryan, and they've tried to do that.
Yeah,
several
that's
people,
right. They made
and
that.
it just does not work.
Jack Ryan
Some of All
movie.
Fears, I believe it was with what's his name, Affleck, and it did not work.
Affleck.
Well, one thing that the Oscars is doing, because they know nobody likes to watch, is that they are doing a 50 years of James Bond retrospective.
Are they going to talk about how the Remington Steele James Bonds were so bad they had to reboot the franchise? He destroyed 50 years of continuity. Terrible movies.
Those were. I don't know why, for some reason it was on cable the
watched
other
it the
night,
other day.
and we
one with
were,
the invisible
we were
car?
watching Die Another Day, and just because I actually fell asleep. I mean, I love James Bond, and I fell asleep when Die Another Day was in the theaters. I was so disappointed, and so we left it on just while we were here doing whatever, and it was in the background, and I got to see how horrible it was again. And
The Ice Hall of Justice, the Nintendo Power Glove, the invisible car.
it was terrible. The guy dressed up with the exoskeleton thing, and he used to be Asian, but he had plastic
Face-off
surgery, so he
surgery,
didn't
so that
didn't
he's
look
not
Asian
Asian
anymore, so that he could.
Now he can be in a Marvel Comics movie.
Seriously. I mean, it was. I can't express how bad it was.
Yeah, all those Remington Steele James Bond movies to me are just bottom of the barrel.
And the funny thing was,
So bad.
when
So bad.
when Remington Steele was on TV, I was like, oh my God, he would be an awesome James
I thought
Bond.
that too. I liked that show as a kid. I
Wanted him
thought
to be
he'd
James Bond.
James Bond. He looks
Yeah.
like fun.
He's British.
I still think what's his name is still my favorite. Everybody hates him, but I like him.
Timothy Dalton?
Yeah, I love Dalton.
Timothy Dalton I thought was a good Bond. I liked Timothy Dalton as Bond. Here's a little 50 years Bond retrospective kind of going in the background here.
And also,
I do like Daniel Craig as Bond, too.
I was tired of Halle Berry at the time that movie came out, which
Yeah.
didn't help too. So tired of hearing about her. It's like she was the only black woman who exists in the whole planet for about a year there. I'm like, enough. Plus, Monsters Ball, not what I thought it would be about at all.
No, that's a hard movie to watch.
Weak.
Yeah, she won an Oscar for that.
She did win an Oscar for that, and then
Hey,
made
full circle,
Catwoman
nice.
right after.
Yes, and then made Catwoman.
Like how we did that. Full circle, right back to the Oscars.
Wise career
Very
choice.
nicely done.
Yes.
I've never seen Catwoman. I suspect it's
yeah,
much
it's-
worse than Daredevil.
Yes, it is.
Oh my God.
Yes, it is.
Daredevil's not bad. Catwoman is genuinely bad.
They try to mix CGI with live action for Catwoman because Halle Berry can't do half the stunts that
Yeah.
they were trying to pull off. So halfway through the movie, she turns into CGI Catwoman, and it's done so poorly, or perhaps the effects just have not held up whatsoever. It's on TNT all the time if you're flipping around, and all of a sudden,
Probably because it's so cheap to buy that they're like, just
All right,
put on Catwoman again.
yeah,
He's a hot chicken that people watch.
Right.
it's so bad. But going back to James Bond, they're re-releasing Doctor No with a 3D conversion in IMAX.
Now, I'm not a big 3D or IMAX guy,
If I want a headache, I'll just drink a bunch of these. I don't need to go 3D movie.
but I did go see Raiders of the Lost Ark when they did not 3D, but they did the IMAX version back,
version.
a few months ago
Yeah.
or whatever. I'm a huge fan of that film, anyways. But watching that on the big screen, I've seen that film 100 times. I literally saw things I've never seen before. I was like, I never noticed that before, because it's so
big.
ridiculously large. Fills the whole screen, and you're seeing things because you can see stuff in the corners that when you're watching it, when you saw it in the theater before, you see it on the TV, even if it's a big screen, you just miss. And I was like, holy.
I don't remember Doctor No well enough to remember it to where, because I went back. If you haven't watched the podcast enough, I've never seen a James Bond movie up until we watched what?
Which one did you watch?
I went back and watched most of them.
Oh, okay.
But since then, Doctor No, I don't remember having any kind of reach out and touch you kind of effect. So
No.
what are they converting it for?
Yeah, the
No,
interesting thing.
isn't the 3D more like layer 3D, like when you use a Viewmaster? It's really just more of that.
Yeah, it's
depth.
there's
Maybe, but this isn't. They're not shooting it that way. This is literally a conversion. So
I don't know.
Well, and Dr. No, there's nothing.
Actually, that's pretty boring. To be honest.
It's
not a very good movie.
it started the whole thing. I like Dr. No, but I like Dr. No from the historical perspective of it's the thing that kicked off and started the whole James Bond thing. But it was pretty tame.
Well, it was a very low budget.
It was low. It only cost $1 million in 1962.
I actually think it's really. I saw it recently. Resaw it, and I think it's pretty boring. Actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great film, but
now, did you like the James Bond films? By the way,
Some.
which ones would you say if you had to watch one again? Which one did you really like, or which couple did you?
yeah, you saw
really like?
Skyfall was like the first Bond film you ever saw, right?
Yeah, then I went back and watched a bunch.
Which ones did you watch?
I liked the one where they went to space. That was fun.
Moonraker.
Moonraker was
Everyone hates that one.
Really? I thought it was.
I
Just called that one Moneyraker because at the time that made more money than any other Bond film ever.
I thought
made.
it was so kitschy in '60s. It was.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Even though it was made in '78.
It's still.
Whatever, yeah,
I don't know. And then there was one.
It was a film of its time,
They were in like Kentucky, and it was a guy who raised horses.
Oh, that one's awful too. View to a Kill.
Did I just watch all
No,
the
that was
worst ones?
that was in San Francisco.
Oh,
He raised the horses. Oh, maybe they did go to
No,
Kentucky.
it was
But View to a Kill was the
all
they
they did
were.
was walk around a horse
was-
farm the whole movie. Nothing happened.
was
That's
that-
pretty much it. Yeah, and they go down underneath the barn and
Yeah, it's got Grace Jones in it.
Yes.
Yeah, that
had
one's
the
very good,
the parachuting stunt off the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
Open the movie.
Yeah, did it open the film?
Yeah.
Now that what the one thing I do like about the Bond
Now,
films.
those two films seriously are considered by fans to be the two worst.
What other ones did you watch? You got to watch something else.
I watched Octopussy.
I love
That one's
Octopussy.
alright.
And I watched 7 of them.
I liked
I love Octopussy.
I like Live and Let Die just because they tried to make a blaxploitation James Bond movie, which is hilarious.
There was one where
With horror elements even.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
some guy gets eaten by a shark at the beginning. And it's like a CIA buddy.
Yeah, that one. That's one of the ones I like. I like
View
that
to
one
a
too.
Kill. Not View.
No,
I'm sorry, not View to Kill, but License to Kill with Timothy Dalton.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a really good movie.
Yeah.
I like
That one's pretty solid. I've never, you know what?
I don't remember the names. I just remember the weird
Yeah.
set pieces.
I liked
Yeah.
that one a lot. That guy who was in that one, Timothy Dalton, only did 2, and those 2 are 2 of my favorites.
Well, if you and Living Daylights, which Dalton did before View to a Kill, is better than. I keep saying View to a Kill, but License to Kill is better than License to Kill. It's cool because he's actually like he's in Afghanistan. There's a cool stunt set piece at the end of the film on a cargo net hanging out the back of like a C-130. Some cool stuff in that film, and Octopussy. I liked Octopussy a lot.
And
I
I
thought
like-
that for some reason that one was just to me was a lot of fun, even though it did have the alligator submarine, which was cheesy, but
What's the
hilarious.
one right before Octopussy?
For Your Eyes Only.
Yeah, that one is probably my favorite of all time.
For Your Eyes Only, it was interesting. It went from this whole, it just kept escalating the ridiculousness of James Bond.
And For Your Eyes Only
going to space.
Yeah.
And I think For Your Eyes Only was right after Moonraker.
And they dropped it off.
And it was literally you went from Moonraker where they're in space to low-key, full-on Cold War.
Spy thriller.
Spy
basically.
thriller.
Yeah, it was a really good movie.
It was fun. And that was good. And there was, there's still some cool set pieces in that one because he still had the White Lotus that in The Spy Who Loved Me turns into a submarine. He's driving that thing underwater, but they blow it up right at the beginning. You think there's going to be some cool stuff with the White Lotus again, and they're like, no, screw you. Boom, just blow the car up and, And then there's a really cool, one thing I think you'll like about this, the thing that I love about the Bond movies is real stunts. The original Bond movies. You get into like Die Another Day and stuff like that, and they're horrible fake CGI stuff. That's not what you want to see in a Bond movie. You want real stunts.
Yeah.
And they did some of the great examples of real stunts were, and you have to tell me if these are some of the ones you saw, Live and Let Die, where they did the boats jumping over land as they were driving through like the marshes.
They were
and stuff.
driving over island,
Little small
islands.
islands, like literally, and they literally were jumping these boats over these islands, which was freaking cool. And The Man with the Golden Gun, which was terrible, but there was a car stunt in that film with a curved ramp
It flips the car.
that flips the car in midair, comes back right side up, and lands right side up.
and they did that in real time.
And they did it, a real stunt with the real car and real, physics working the whole thing out and everything, and it
I
was.
saw the one with Christopher Walken as the.
Yeah, that one's
Yeah, you
terrible.
picked a bad one.
I
there.
didn't pick these; they were on A&E. I was literally
gotcha.
like bored on the couch one Saturday. I was like, James Bond marathon.
Yeah, that one's
A&E.
terrible. When he sleeps with Grace Jones. That alone.
That's the
Yeah.
part that kills Brad the worst.
The whole
is it?
movie's bad, but
Yeah.
that's just.
Yeah, that was the horse race one. Where
Yeah.
it was
And that had
terrible.
gotten to the point where Roger Moore was 60 years old, and by that point it was like you literally say, he's like, oh, Bond is old now, no more old man Bond. Let's get a young guy in here. So, but anyways, the Oscars are doing a 50-year retrospective of James Bond. You know what one I really like too is from Russia with Love, which was right before Goldfinger, which kicked it off with all the gadgets and everything. But again, very Cold War, early 1960s Cold War kind of storyline, which was cool and a lot of fun. And I think you would appreciate those Cold War storyline sort of ones.
More so than the horrible Pierce Brosnan ones.
Yeah, they just. I hope you didn't watch any of the Pierce Brosnan ones. Were one of those on?
I saw the one with the invisible car, and there's like a ice castle palace.
That's possibly the.
And he has the bad guys in the Nintendo.
Yeah,
Nintendo
that was the
Power
worst
Glove
James Bond movie
controls
ever
the
made. It was horrible.
I turned it off.
Horrible.
Actually, I think that was the last one that
was-
day. I was just like, I'm done.
It was god awful.
This is so bad.
Yeah, it was disgusting. So, anyways, the Oscars are throwing in a little James Bond 50th retrospective to try and spice things up. That, and the other thing they're doing to spice things up is Seth MacFarlane.
Yes. Who they're a little nervous about, I was reading. He has...
His lack of talent is like a black hole.
He has a team of writers that are going to be on set writing live jokes during the event itself. So there's not a whole lot of time to clear them through the censors or the powers that be. So he's got people to punch up his jokes in real time, so to speak. So
They've had months, and he's been announced for months, and then from what I hear, they literally run through like clockwork, dress rehearsal sort of thing.
Well, they got those things, but he also has like his
Why
his stable
the
of writers
live
that-
jokes then for?
They
keep
want
it
to
fresh?
keep it fresh. Like if something's not responding well, or they
Right.
realize
Or
that
something
things are going
happens.
flat, or something happens. Yeah,
Sure.
That makes sense.
that they can be a little more timely and punctual.
I'd like to see something fun happen at the Oscars, like
Like a fight.
well, you
fun.
go to weddings, and like weddings are generally pretty standard and boring, and then something happens like somebody gets incredibly drunk, that they knock over the cake or whatever, and everybody thinks it's a disaster, but it's actually becomes a really memorable moment, and it's a really memorable wedding, and you look back years later and be like, oh, I remember when so-and-so knocked over the cake, oh, the bride was so upset, but she got over it, and it's like the best moment. The worst thing at that point in time ends up being the best thing that ever happened at your wedding.
I'll have to tell you about the wedding I disrupted. It's not really for the podcast.
So I don't know what could possibly happen at the Oscars.
It's so staged and scripted.
I know.
I just don't think it could happen these
I know,
days.
but it'd be fun if something.
Unless
Well,
someone
somebody
who's-
just has to step outside the box and do it.
It's got to be someone who's really politically active and engaged, gets up there and just gives some horrific speech.
Right.
Because once they're on the mic, unless they cut it off, like
Well, there's
live.
7
second delay, but they can go totally off.
You can completely off the rails.
Yeah, you never know.
and it'll still be recorded somewhere, and somebody will release it on the internet.
Yeah, it'll be
there's no way that it will not be found or released or whatever. So anyway, even though the Oscars are sponsored, we really appreciate it and are very thankful. I'd like something crazy to happen at the Oscars to make it interesting.
Something spice it up a little bit.
So moving on from the Oscars, we actually wanted to chat a little bit also about Star Wars again, because now they've sort of basically announced.
Oh, they announced that weeks ago, or months ago.
Well, they announced that they're going to do the films, but now we all know what the films are going to be.
Oh, really? I had no idea.
That's
Old, is it like old Han Solo or something?
It is all the original characters. Well, the original main three. So Han, Leia, and Luke, which is Mark Hamill.
That's interesting because
Harrison
they're
Ford,
the
Carrie Fisher. It's not going to be about them, but they'll
be in it.
They've all signed on to reprise their roles as sort of the elder versions of themselves. And
Obviously,
it's
much
gonna,
older.
yes. It's going to be about their kids, though. So Han Solo, it's going to be, assuming they're coming with the original canon that's sort of been extended in the book
The
universe.
novels, yeah.
For Han and Carrie Fisher, or Han and Leia, it's Anakin's the youngest. And you've got the two twins, Jace and
Jason and Jaina.
Jason and Jaina, which are the two twins. And then for Luke, you've got his son Ben.
It makes me so sad that you know this.
He knows it too.
Yeah, I've read all the novels too. So
I've read like Star Wars novels. I read one that Matt wrote just because I know Matt.
Right.
And I read the ones that came out when I was a kid, the Han Solo ones.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah.
That's all I've ever read.
Yeah.
which I love.
I read Splinter the Mind's Eye, which is terrible.
Yeah.
Makes me want to puke in my hands just even thinking about it.
I'm assuming that
Oh,
what
it might be that
what they'll do is they'll make them early 20s, so that they can carry them on in perpetuity until
What are they
they're
gonna
until
do
they're
now?
old people.
So what are they going to do? Do they?
I'm sure they'll just make up some new storyline. It won't be anything coming out of any of the books or anything. They'll do something completely unique. But at least what's his name?
Lucas is involved.
Yeah, at least what's his name that wrote Empire is involved. Lawrence Kasdan.
Lawrence Kasdan is writing it, and honestly, I was a little taken aback. Everyone thought when Lawrence Kasdan was announced to write it, they were gonna continue that on to have him direct as well, because he directed Empire, which was
Irvin Kershner directed.
Irvin Kershner directed Empire. But they thought that they were gonna get that whole gang back.
Yeah.
That made Empire so special.
No, J.J. Abrams.
And J.J. But anyway, Lawrence Kasdan is sort of credited as getting the original trilogy off the ground. So we're hoping it's going to be good.
Yeah, we'll see. We were starting to talk about earlier how that when Lucas is not involved in Star Wars, it's actually good. Like the Clone Wars cartoon that's on, they're chopping
it's
people's
amazing.
heads off. I mean, it's dark. It's literally not.
There's a whole subset of Star Wars novels now that there's like a horror
Yeah.
thing going on with zombies and ghosts and whatever the hell other stuff there's in Star Wars universe. I find that odd and interesting that they do that. It just seems weird.
It's not typically seen as canon, though. It's a sort of
it's just interesting.
kitsch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same as the Marvel comic book isn't, but I think the Marvel comic book's better than
Marvel,
even Jedi.
the Marvel
Yeah.
comic Star Wars stuff is awesome.
There's a really good stuff in there. I mean, not all of it was good. Some was corny, but a lot of it's better than, like I said, even better than Jedi, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, they're gonna. So, and then in addition to doing, the film that's the follow up to the first 6 films or whatever, there will be standalone films. Of course, I mean Disney's gonna beat it to death because they want to.
Well, no, here's an interesting thing. Disney's owned rights to make Oz movies forever, and they never beat that to death. And they finally have something coming out like in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Which is weird to me. I mean, they made Return to Oz in what, 85, and they've just done nothing with it in all these years. It's just sat there and rotted. And finally, they're putting a movie out.
I think that was Walter Murch's only movie he directed.
Really?
Walter Murch being the Grand High Pumbaa of editing theory.
Yeah.
I like that movie.
I don't remember it.
Yeah,
TikTok. It
nobody saw
was a really dark movie.
It's very dark.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts with Dorothy. In,
Remember The Wiz?
getting
Electroshock therapy.
because she won't stop talking about Oz.
Really?
So they got her in an asylum, giving her electroshock.
Interesting.
It's a really good movie, though. I mean, it's great if you get a chance to see.
pull up
Fruza
a
Balk
trailer.
played Dorothy in it.
I mean, I remember
One of her
it,
first
but
roles,
I
if not her
don't.
first.
I don't remember
Everybody
anything
remembers
about
it coming out because they've sequelized Wizard of Oz like 3 times now, officially, and then everybody hates it and just kind of pretends it didn't happen every single time. Pretty hilarious. I can't remember the other one. There's one, Journey Back to Oz was the original official sequel that they just pretended didn't exist then.
Well, and then they did a bunch of like Sci-Fi Channel tried to do like
this was
an
supposed to
Oz
be
10-man,
series.
These are supposed to
and-
be like officially the sequel to the MGM movie. I never promoted as
gotcha.
such and are supposed to be such, and then after it comes out, everybody's like,
not so much.
never mind.
Yeah.
One of them was animated, and one was Return to Oz.
And don't forget about The Wiz. Michael Jackson and
Tina Turner.
not Tina Turner, but
No, it was Diana Ross.
Diana Ross.
Yeah.
I don't far too much.
They
about
sang
Wizard
through the
of
whole
Oz for a
thing.
Straight,
Oh, terrible.
sang and sang and sang.
well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just it was
No.
so bad, so wrong-headed.
I don't like musicals though. Like I usually like to see. I've been so busy, I haven't had a chance to see all of them. I like to see all of the Oscar-nominated films, but I'm just not going to go see Les Mis. I don't want to. I don't want them to. I don't. Why? I don't like musicals. One of the worst. I have seen a lot of bad movies, and I've seen a lot of bad movies at the theaters. Highlander 2.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Battlefield Earth, I saw at the theaters as well. Oh my God, don't even get me started on that one. But the one, and I've never walked out of a film in a theater because I paid for it. I'm going to sit there for my 90 minutes or 2 hours, whatever it is. I'm going to watch the damn movie and eat my popcorn at least. At least I can enjoy my popcorn. But the one movie that I was this close to walking out of and didn't do it just because was Chicago, which of course won best film, Oscar, and I was like, oh, Chicago. It's horrible. And I think I was telling somebody about it afterwards, and I was like, they sang through the whole thing. They're like, it was a musical. What do you want? I was like, I thought there might be some
too much
dialogue
music in that
and then
musical.
some singing. Like I saw Dreamgirls a few years ago or whatever.
Is this just the movie?
Not bad. Just some clips from Return to Oz.
Oh, okay. 'Cause
And there are
things
other
happen.
musical things that I like. La Bamba was sort of a musical. Yeah, I like La Bamba. But
He died a fiery helicopter crash.
right.
beat that.
But Chicago, my God, I seriously, shoot me in the head if I had to watch that film again.
I couldn't deal with it.
No, horrible,
Ugh.
horrible. I like Tosh.0, Daniel Tosh, comedian Tosh.0. He did a whole Oscar thing this past week, so we're giving a little shout out to him. If you get a chance to see it online or on their website or whatever, it's really funny. His like Oscar preview stuff that he does, ripping into everything. Of course, it's his style is to rip on everything, but it was genuinely funny. So we're going back to Star Wars a little bit. They're going to do a standalone Yoda film, which I know they won't do it, but it would be awesome if it was a puppet Yoda, like for the whole movie.
Not. I'm hoping it's an animation.
No, here's what I think.
The whole movie's
animated.
Hire a midget.
That'd be much better.
And just have him in a Yoda costume, no matter how bad it looks.
I think that'd be better than CGI Yoda.
Yoda's like the most boring character. We'll get the old guy who gives advice. That'll be the center of this action adventure film. The old guy who gives advice.
Maybe it'll be young Yoda.
Maybe they should make one around that robot that like fixed Luke up after he got torn up by the wildfire. He could be the star. It'd be like a medical show.
Was that 21B?
I don't know, 21B, MD. Seriously, come on. I'm so retarded. And literally the whole show would just be sitting there, so he turns it on.
If we could find a really cool 21B actual robot, that would be fun to make a 21B MD
there was
short film.
There was a toy for it in the original Star Wars. It can't possibly be rare or expensive because who the fuck wants that?
But I mean, like,
I want the doctor.
Like, if we could just find like the torso, we could just throw on somebody to wear as a costume and make our own little 21B short film. It would just be 21B MD and style it after like the all the different hospital shows are on. It'd be like Grey's Anatomy with 21B MD as part of the.
I love you, 21B. I'm married to my work.
That would be fun. Don't steal our idea. We're gonna make this.
We're gonna get that for the film festival submitted.
Somebody is gonna submit it. It's like, here comes the 21B MD.
I will put that in the film festival. So if someone makes
if someone makes the 21B MD, that's just awesome. It rhymes so well. I love that.
How do you remember that his name was 21B? I even had the toy and I couldn't remember.
I don't know. I can't remember.
I remember he had this thing that went in his mouth and you would lose it, and that always pissed me off.
I never had the 21B
and then,
toy.
Then you lost the thing, but it had a peg it fit in, so that it just constantly looked like you wanted to give somebody a blowjob. Wasn't that funny?
No, that's fine. Humorous today.
I remember as a kid, Luke and I were like, "Quick, get that gay robot. We're gonna, go do this. You gotta fight the He-Man action figures or whatever the hell they're gonna do." Bastards.
That would be hilarious if they were doing some other like random standalone films, like they're just picking out weird, like the 21B
Snaggletooth
and Snaggletooth standalone. Snaggletooth Bounty Hunter.
I would go to a Dengar film.
Dengar the Bounty Hunter. He was
the guy with the turban.
The turban wrapped around his head, and he had like an eye patch or something.
I totally liked the character solely because I had the action figure as a child. I don't even remember him in the movie. I mean, I'm sure he just stood there probably.
Yeah.
But I mean, seriously, the action figure looked like a grumpy guy in a full body cast wearing a backpack. It wasn't exactly the most exciting toy, but for some reason I loved that toy. I thought he was cool.
Well, what was weird too is they did a bounty hunters like novelization sort of thing. And like Dengar was like the main character in the novelization. I was like, why this guy?
Yeah.
He was just like.
They've made novels about any lame ass stupid background character in those movies.
Yeah, it's bizarre. So here's Dengar.
Dewback Patrol.
This is a Robot Chicken episode, but with apparently starring Dengar. If you can't remember what he looked like. Anyways.
So of course we get a long
intro. There's your Dengar. There's your Dengar.
I have action figures of all those guys.
The
robot would break all the time.
IG-88.
Piece of shit.
And Bosk, the two other bounty hunters.
They were major characters in a arc of the Star Wars comic book too.
Yeah.
When they were like treading water, waiting for Han Solo to come back, and they just, we'll go see if he's here. Oh no, we'll go see if he's here. We'll go see if he's here. We'll go see if he's here. And then the Jedi came out like, oh, he's here. We'll just go. So we know where you're taking him. Come on.
I liked in the Marvel Star Wars comics the Jax, the big rabbit guy.
Yeah, Jackson. He was awesome.
Yeah, that was
the
cool.
Green Rabbit. And the funny thing is, I mean, it wasn't true, but the rumor always was that George Lucas got mad and didn't want him in there, thought it was too silly. But then he made Jar Jar Binks, which is basically a more annoying version of the same character.
Right.
Yeah.
So. Well, that character was like a bounty hunter, like a tough bounty hunter, and
he was more like a Han Solo.
Yeah, exactly.
Smuggler
type.
Yeah.
So.
But it wasn't true that George Lucas wanted him out of there.
Yes.
He just didn't. He didn't care. He didn't care if they did it.
Well, he has 4.5 billion reasons now why he doesn't care what they do with it.
My favorite bit in the Star Wars comic is in one of the British issues. They had a issue called Day After the Death Star.
Yeah.
And it starts at the party they had. We see the award ceremony at the end, and at the party everybody gets shit-faced. And Luke's narrating it in his head, and he's like, So at some point, sometimes it seemed like all my dreams had come true, and this was the perfect life I'd always meant to live. And it wasn't making out with Leia. Then the next panel is, and other times it seems like things had completely gotten out of hand, and she's making out with Han.
Yeah, that's really funny. And of course, they are going to do, in addition to the Han Solo standalone film, young Han Solo, of course. No idea who that actor will be, but I'm sure they'll
It'll
find
be better than Harrison Ford at acting. I mean,
the Yoda, which I'm voting for Puppet Yoda, and Boba Fett, of course.
fuck off, you nerds and your fucking Boba Fett. You could seriously make a show where Boba Fett had moved to Chicago and lived with like B. Arthur, and people would watch it and bootleg it. And, oh my god, Boba Fett.
Well,
Boba Fett's a bitch. He died by accident in the movies. He's such a bitch.
It's terrible.
I mean, he sucks. I hate Boba Fett. I'm so sick of it.
But there's going to be a Boba Fett standalone.
I'm not surprised. That, to be honest, if I owned the property, I'd probably do that too, because that's everybody go see that.
Yeah.
Even I'll go see it just so I can bitch about it.
Yeah, and I wonder if, it's been so, what was it, 2002 when Attack of the Clones came out, and they had, like, little kid Boba Fett? I wonder if little kid Boba Fett will be older. I
wouldn't do that.
He'll be in his 20s.
I'd just find somebody who...
But they'll probably just find different.
Yeah.
Or they might just use the actor who played the adult clones.
Yeah.
And they use the same guy. Because that's like the sort of thing, they've sort of backed themselves into a wall, is because all the clones are based off of... It's supposed to look the same, and so you've seen all the clones in all the other movies, and they're all supposed to look like this guy.
Yes, plastic surgery or something, that doesn't matter.
I
think if they just ignored the first three movies...
Full Die Another Day, Face-Off style.
Just pretend they didn't happen.
Well, that's interesting. The new X-Men movie coming out, I was just reading this the other day. Yesterday, in fact. Days of Future Past.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, actually.
Which...
If they don't screw it up.
I hope not. Bryan Singer's coming back,
Well, I liked X-Men First Class. They actually did a good job with that.
It was great. I really liked that. I liked the whole Cold War aspect of it.
Yeah, I liked that they did it in the 1960s.
But Bryan Singer did the first two. Not the X-Men First Class, but the first
X-Men, and then X-Men 2. And the third one was a piece of junk.
Piece of junk, because he left and Brett Ratner came in.
And piece of shit.
Who keeps giving Brett Ratner money to make movies?
I don't know.
That's what I want to know.
Ridiculous.
God, that guy's horrible.
But here's the problem: is that X-Men: Future Past, they're bringing back all the original cast members from Bryan Singer's original X-Men as their older selves in the future timeline.
Oh, that's cool.
And mixing it with First Class, which is their younger selves.
Right.
Or the alternates. And they asked Bryan Singer, are you going to continue the timeline as if Last Stand, which was the Brett Ratner one, happened? And he's like, I fucking hate that movie. I mean,
it's his own fault, though, for bailing. Like
it is. Well, he blamed it on the studio because they wouldn't sign a deal. So he just went off in the Brett Ratner movie.
Right.
He's like, it doesn't exist anymore. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to fix what he screwed up.
Right.
Because he destroyed my baby.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people who died in that version, so Jean Grey, Cyclops, they're all going to be alive in the future, and they're just totally ignoring that.
That's fucking hilarious.
That's good.
They might just totally ignore the original 3 trilogy. I hope so. That's where I was getting with that.
Not the original 3 trilogy, but
the prequels.
The prequels.
Yeah. So let's get rid of Jar Jar Binks. He never happened. And midichlorians never happened.
Yeah. There's no reason to start talking about that because it's just...
Yeah, that's been overdone.
Yeah.
Nerds can talk about that.
Yeah,
indeed.
We got other nerdy things we can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Star Wars is...
So, but the Days of Future Past, for maybe people who don't know, in the X-Men, comic books in the X-Men comic book world, is basically this alternate future where they pass a mutant registration bill where it passes, and then the senator who passes the bill gets assassinated, and then like all hell breaks loose. Basically, and sort of this.
I used to have a big poster that was made. It was made to look like a public service announcement poster, same style and everything. That said, be sure to register your child with the Mutant Registration Act, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Marvel put it. It came through with some comic books.
That's cool.
It was cool. I wish I still had it.
Yeah. But it's going to be cool because they're introducing Sentinels in this one.
Yeah,
You've
Sentinels.
got Trask coming out in this one.
Everybody likes giant robots.
And you have the whole time travel thing. So you're going to have Bishop coming back in time. So they're really... I don't know if you like Bishop, but...
This is like a non-character with a meaningless name who does nothing. I hate him. And he wasn't even in Days of Future Past, the storyline.
No, not the original one. No.
He didn't exist for 10 years.
They didn't make him up till much later.
Well, they're...
But they're going to, yeah.
The animated series Days of the Future Past is what they're trying to go to. But
right.
You're still going to see, really, the entire original cast, Halle Berry, the whole deal from the original 2 X-Men, are going to be made up to be older, including Wolverine, and they're all going to be
Yeah.
Or at least some of them sent back in time. So
Yeah, that'll be fun.
it's gonna be cool.
And are they doing it? Is this one going to take place in the 1970s? Like, as far as, because I heard they was going to go 1960s and 1970s, then they were
It's
going
taking place in the 1970s,
Yeah.
and it's dealing more of a spy thriller type thing, and it has something to do with Nixon, and that's the only
Right.
plot details that he was willing to disclose in the interview.
See, that's fun. That's good.
Yeah,
I like that.
He was committed to having the same tone. Like First Class felt very much like it was taking place in the 60s.
Yeah,
It had the
absolutely.
pastiche of all the cars and the clothes and everything else. And he said he's taking the same care to transit that now into the 70s. So
Good.
it's going to feel, even the look of the film he's trying to really capture
Sure.
to make it look
Give
like
it
a
that 70s
film.
sort of look. As long as it doesn't go too overboard with that, you know. If I wanted to see a 70s film, I would watch a 70s film.
That'll be fun though if they do it that way.
But a little bit. I'm sure, you know, they're just going to color correct the hell out of it and give it
He
that.
was even talking about the two shooting styles are going to be different. So like the future is going to look
okay.
very different than the 70s style.
70s with that snap zoom and all that other
everything like
yeah.
they really
that's
wanted
cool.
to make the two
That'll
spaces
really
feel
work.
separate.
That's cool. And then
works
so
well.
the future can be sort of just modern editing and filming styles, in the 70s shooting like a 70s style. That's cool. I like
if they
that.
do it right.
Yeah.
I remember, I can't remember the name of the movie. There's this horror movie I saw recently where the whole gimmick was it was packaged as a 70s movie that was never released on VHS and got lost. But they found it and they shot it to look like a 70s movie, and of course they had all the grain and like there's an old film. And they the gimmick was the only print they could find was a TV print that had an introduction on it from some old midnight, freak show from the 80s. So they had the opening with that and a couple fake commercials, and they had the guy like, I'm Goulardi introducing this.
Really?
Film. And the whole thing was cool as fuck, and it looked like that, and even the packaging made it look like a beat up old VHS. And goddamn, right in the middle of the fucking movie, the lead character pops out her little mini modern cell phone. It's like, la 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 la.
He's ruined it.
Yeah, it's totally ruined it. Like, we didn't have little cell phones like this in 1970. You fucking idiots.
How could you not?
I know, it's totally ruined it. And the funny part is, the cell phone had no bearing on the plot at all. She was chit-chatting with a friend before the horror began. There was literally...
What was the name of the film?
I can't remember it. It was Killer Bats. It's about killer bats, and this mad scientist makes killer bats, and they have to deal with the bats.
And this just came out within the last few
Yeah,
years?
it came out in the last 3 or 4 years. 4 or 5 years, something like that. I mean, it was a fun movie, but that just one scene ruined it. And again, it had no bearing on the plot. It's not like she whipped out the cell phone and advanced the plot with it or saved the day or anything. It's just like completely just brain dead, filmmakers not thinking ahead or not realizing that we didn't have cell phones back then or something.
Well, I was trying to look up a Killer Bats movie here, and
Human Harvest, Blood Harvest. I don't remember what it was called.
well, I'm not finding anything about Killer Bats. Well, I guess before we wrap up today, Brad, do you have any books or anything you would like to promote?
I was giving away Trash of the Titans, the critical attack on fantasy films away free, but that's over. So if you don't have it free, you missed it. But it's only $3, so just download one for Christ's sake, so I can buy some dinner. $3.
$3 for Trash of the Titans.
Yeah.
And where can people find it?
Oh, Amazon. Right now, exclusively on Amazon for the time being.
Exclusively on Amazon. Tyler, anything you'd like to promote? You're not selling anything.
I'm not selling anything. You can follow me on Twitter at JT Martinolich.
Yeah, you know what? We never do that. We never give out the old Twitter handles and stuff like that. Follow us on...
I like
we
Twitter
gotta
followers.
cross-pollinate.
Yeah.
Dang, I keep
I
forgetting.
haven't.
I guess...
in weeks. So.
Follow me on Twitter at Tony Armour. Armour spelled A-R-M-E-R. It should be on the beginning of the podcast if you can't
And I
figure
don't
it
remember
out.
It's always at the beginning.
I don't
Yeah.
remember my Twitter address, so next time.
And that is our timer saying that we are about
Mr.
time.
Is it?
So how about that? Even before the timer had off, it just felt like the episode should be over. I think we ran.
I'm sure many viewers felt it. should
And
be
then
over.
they
Many
probably
of
haven't
you
even
quite
got
some
that far.
time
They probably
ago.
never got that far. They're like, this felt like it should have been over an hour ago. What are they talking about again? Thanks for joining us for Sunscreen Film Festival podcast number 30. And
There won't be one next week because
Yes.
you're in Switzerland.
next week I will be out of town. So this is the last one for a couple weeks. And then actually, I guess the next one will probably be maybe the March 17th one, unless we do one. I get back on the 11th. So last podcast for a couple of weeks, basically.
All right, well,
Yeah.
find something else to do on Sunday. Go
Yeah.
to church.
Enjoy your Sundays.
Or get drunk,
See you in a few
Get drunk
weeks.
at church.
Yeah.